co-authors and sisters, which leads me to have so many questions about how they write, but we'll get into that. These are the authors of one of the good ones, Dear Haiti, Love Elaine, which I read last year, and their newest novel, which I was so excited to get my hands on from the moment I heard its incredible title, which is The Summer I Ate the Rich. Please welcome my guests, Maika and Maritza Moulite. Thank you guys for being here.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for having us. Sure. The Summer I Ate the Rich is about 17-year-old Brielle Petitfou, who happens to be a Haitian American zombie who wants to be a chef, who decides to exact revenge on the very wealthy elites that she feels are responsible for her family's pain.
Beautiful, Maritza.
How did this story come to be? What came first? The plot, the characters, the idea of telling the story of the Haitian zombie, lore. What came
Okay,
first?
pronunciation. That zombie
I
was
was,
Okay,
I
I was
was
gonna
trying.
say that. That
I was
pronunciation was very good.
okay. I tried.
In this context, the chicken is the whole plot and our main character. And the
Mhm.
egg was the title, The Summer Ate the Rich. And we actually, write books in all sorts of ways. Sometimes we're just like inspired by one character and are curious to come up with the shenanigans that she would come up, get into. But in
hmm
the case of The Summer I Ate the Rich, um, I had that title. Michael's like, awesome. We are like, great, perfect. And we first were inspired by a few things. So, like, in our own personal family lives, our mother, who has chronic back pain, was having issues with her health insurance company, who was, for a variety of reasons, not wanting to fill the pain pump that she has in her body to help her manage the pain. And every hour that the pump was empty, it would beep to remind the person who had that pump that it was empty, which was ridiculous because, of course, they knew that they weren't receiving any medication. They could feel that. So we were just really frustrated by the bureaucracy of all of that and just knowing that we couldn't afford to just get this medication on our own. But then we also, when we started writing or started like plotting this book, we felt like we still were we were missing we were still missing something. And then Maika geniusly uh decided like, well, what if our character Brielle literally eats the rich? And we immediately I immediately was like, oh my God, that's perfect. That's it. And then that is when it felt like that final clinch that we needed. And Maika could talk about like what makes this this character just absolutely perfect for us as writers and the story.
Yes. So, like Marissa said, she came up with the title, The Summer I Ate the Rich, which, there's a name for it, which I can't remember, but it's like when you have a title that clearly explains what the book is about, it's like, chef's kiss,
Mhm.
Um, and the idea of the zombie essentially came from our understanding of Haitian culture. And so when we think of the zombie in the Western context, we think of that Walking Dead zombie. But
Mhm.
the zombie originated from Haitian lore, and it was essentially the fears of the enslaved Africans who were forcibly brought over to Haiti, or at the time, the whole island. It was called Hispaniola. But it was the African people who were brought to Haiti who were worried that their enslavement would continue even in the afterlife. And so that idea of being undead wasn't the way that we think about it in this Western context of like this zombie who's like moaning and groaning and wants to eat your brains. It was
Mhm.
more that you are undead and you are spending the rest of your existence, eternity in labor, forced labor at that. And so keeping that in mind, we decided that we wanted to essentially play with the idea of the Haitian zombie and the American zombie. And Brielle is Haitian American in the story. And she essentially has these urges where she will, want to eat some brains. But then she has, which is of course a nod to the Western idea of the zombie. But then as a Haitian zombie, she is leaning into the mythology of how the zombie is created, which incorporates like, it's almost like these like bespoke or secretive mixtures that someone who engages in these types of art, which is called a boko, that they will like have this like proprietary mix of things that they can give someone, essentially feed them, and then they put the person in a state of like they lose their consciousness, and from there they are able to control the person. And so that is where Brielle is essentially navigating her zombie urges while leveraging her power as a Haitian American teen who also happens to be a zombie or a zombie who wants to be a chef. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, antics ensue, and it's because she is trying essentially to get back at those wealthy billionaires who she blames for the issues that her mom has with her pain pump, as well as some other issues that her family has experienced.
Give a shout out to the way that you both wrote the novel, because not only do we have her perspective in present day, but you wrote through the eyes of her sisters. And if I'm not mistaken, it reads similar to the Muses and Hercules. Like it's
Yes.
very poetic in the way
Yes.
that it's written, and telling the story of her parents and her mother. Can you give us a little bit of background about that? And did that come alongside the initial planning, or was that something added in?
Mhm.
So we wanted to give more background to what and who made Brielle the way that she is. And we thought that the perfect vehicle for telling that side of the story would be these Haitian cross off Greek. No, just kidding.
It was,
These, yeah, would be these Greek scratch that Haitian muses, who are Brielle's sisters who have never been to the United States. And something that our editor, Trisha de Guzman, at FSG Kids, encouraged us to do was really like dig deep into some of the tensions that come with being the child of immigrants and like being in touch with your relatives who are still abroad. Because there definitely comes like being here in the States, even with all of the issues and the drama and injustice, like there comes a level of privilege and gratitude as well, being here and having opportunities to many things that we don't have back home. And she encouraged us to, just like examine that some more with these sisters that Brielle has. They share the same mother, but have a different father, from Brielle, and like what that would be like. So, we decided to have her sisters be inspired by those Greek muses. And they all have their own different personalities, comedy, poetry, dance, history, tragedy, those things that are all a part of just like, human experience. But we wanted those certain those themes to be really present in the characters. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add to that, in our first two books, Dear Haiti, Love Elaine, and One of the Good Ones, we really play with history. And for The Summer I Ate the Rich, we do have this element of history where we kind of give the context for where the zombie originated in Haitian lore. But we aren't really doing this like, focus on the history of a country like we did with Dear Haiti, Love Elaine, where we looked at Haiti, and One of the Good Ones, where we looked at the US. And so, because we do like going into history, we decided that we wanted to go into the history of this family. And we felt that her sisters being able to guide us through that history would be able to like translate for the reader,
Mhm.
and almost act as a stand-in. You know, there are moments when even when the Haitian muses are explaining how a zombie is made, and they're like, you know, kind of bickering within one another, where they're like, "Oh, don't do that, you'll scare them being the reader."
Mhm.
And it was just so fun for us. And also, as sisters, we find that a lot of our work has sisters incorporated within it. And
Hmm.
this was really interesting for us to have sisters who didn't grow up together in the same household. And Brielle is really navigating the the pressure that can come with being the child of immigrants. And in her case, she's the only one that was born in the United States. And throughout the story, Brielle has actually never had the chance to go to Haiti. And so she is grappling with this desire of like following her own dreams and wanting to become a chef, um, even though that's not what her mother wants for her. And her sisters give some context as to why their mother would not be supportive of Brielle being a chef. And part of that is because, you know, as children of immigrants, there's this joke, especially for Haitian people, that your parents only want you to become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And Brielle very much is going counter to that. And, you know, her sisters who are in Haiti, you know, there was a line that we wrote or something like, where we're talking about how Brielle feels so privileged because of where she, you know, the circumstances of her birth and having been born in the United States. And she says something like she knows that her sisters would have their machetes at the ready to be able to like get their own opportunity that she is kind of, you know, she feels taking for granted because it's not what her mother wants. And so, you know, the sisters really help to, give more context to Brielle as a zombie, but also as a, you know, a Haitian American teen.
And I think you both do a very good job in both novels of expressing generations and family and, like you said, history, and in various ways, right? But it's so beautifully done that you get a glimpse of each person and kind of the way that either their choices or life turned out. And I think that's always a great way to shape a character, and
Mhm.
especially as you're reading kind of the present day to get a little bit of the past. And I
Mhm.
think both of your novels that I read do that very well, and it gives like some empathy, sympathy, and understanding in a way that you wouldn't maybe get if you only wrote through one perspective.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. We always joke too, like when we read young adult novels and like the adults in their lives aren't really apparent. We're like, where are their parents? Like, does
Yes.
anyone know where this young person is? And so like having this like incorporation of the family kind of helps answer that, even as Brielle still does things without her family knowing. And then she's like,
Mm-hmm.
you ask for forgiveness, not permission.
I love that theme in like a YA, especially mystery or thriller where it's like useless adults. Like I love that. Like the Scooby Doo gang, like running I love it. I just think it's so
Yes.
funny to read and like see. Also want to ask you both, when do you feel the most like yourselves?
Mm. Girl, you're getting existential. What's happening here?
These are great. Um, I think I feel the most like myself when I am reading, and
Mhm.
that is not a pandering answer for this book, for this
Podcast.
podcast, but reading has just been such a huge part of my life forever, and I love stories. And even though I've grown to be a person who doesn't have to hide behind books or like look to brave characters to do things that I'm or afraid of or was afraid to do,
Mhm.
they still feel like home and like wonderful friends to me today.
Mhm.
Like just learning or like just getting to know a new character is still just the best feeling. And then going back and returning to old friends often. Like basically, my sister Jessica and I read and watch. We're just like continual. We're like always watching or reading Pride and Prejudice 2005 over and over again. And it just feels that makes me feel like home, like being in all these other worlds.
I would say that I feel the most like myself when I'm around my family. I know, very cheesy as I'm on this podcast with my sister. Um, but really, there's no one who knows me the way that my family does.
Mm.
And I think also because our dad passed away a little over a year ago, we just have seen each other through so many different moments. And I love that I could just be, super serious and then super silly, like my youngest sister, Leanne, she's the youngest of us, and we're 6 years apart. So there's four of us, and Leanne's the youngest. So I'll joke that like Leanne and I will just make jokes back and forth together, and I'm like, wow, it's like I'm 30 years old because I'm 36, but I'm like I have the sensibilities of a 30-year-old because we just will like feed off of each other and just like really joke. And then I could have like existential conversations with Jessica about like well, Jessica will force me to watch all of the dating shows that she loves to watch, like Love is Blind or what's the one where they're on the island?
Oh my God. Oh wait. Never mind. I was gonna say Love Island, but then you
Love
said the
Island.
It is
Yes,
Love
yes.
Island.
yes,
Oh.
yes.
Yes.
It is Love Island. So we'll be watching these, or she'll force me to watch an episode. But then we'll talk about like this is a microcosm for relationships. What does this dynamic say about heterosexual relationships? What does this? It's like we'll get into these like
1000%.
you know.
Yes.
And I just love that. And then with Maritza, like, of course, we like write books together. But then I just love like when we were on tour because touring is so fun. It's like you're meeting readers, you're
Mhm.
meeting booksellers, you're going to libraries, you're going to bookstores, and it's just like a lot of like stimulation in terms of like the people that you're interacting with. And then afterwards, we'll have like, just like a debrief where sometimes it's like we're not even saying anything. We're just in the room together, sitting next to each other, not saying anything. And I love that. And so, my sisters are, and my mom and my grandma and my dad, I know he's, sending us signals from wherever he is.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, like I feel the happiest with my family. And yeah.
For both of you,
Ooh.
what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? And it does not have to be writing and book related.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I'm like, if I couldn't fail.
What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail?
Fly. No, I'm kidding.
Whatever I wanted.
Yeah. You said whatever you wanted, Marissa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What would I do if I knew that I wouldn't fail? Oh my gosh. I would become the most benevolent dictator. I would be like, everyone, we need a societal reset. The systems that we have created are working for no one. Here are my ideas. Tell me if you agree. If you don't, we can confer, and then we'll do it all together. And then
Oh my
hopefully
God.
I'd be able to like reset the universe. And yeah, I wouldn't even have to stay as president, but it was just like that's the concept that we currently
Mm.
understand. And then
Mm.
I would just be like, let me use this as the anchor. We get that. Okay, now power to the
Mm.
people.
Oh my
Using
God.
your powers for good.
Yes. Marissa, did I
That's
give you an idea?
amazing. That's so good. So mine was more convoluted, but I think I was getting to the same place. Like, build a time machine successfully, go back
Ooh.
into the past, invest in I don't know, whatever the most lucrative stock to invest in would be. Use that money in the future to stop all the other billionaires from existing somehow,
Yes.
but also
Ooh.
myself in the final act. But also
Ooh.
using my plutocratic powers to ultimately become a benevolent dictator as well. Yes, thank you.
Of course. Your villain arc.
Yes.
Oh, those are good
Write these story
answers.
ideas, Kendall.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it sounds like. Those are good answers. And also, I could only imagine if I had a time machine, the havoc that I
Oh,
would create and the
absolutely.
chaos. And
Yep.
oh, I would rewrite
Yeah.
history and it would probably not end well.
Yeah, no, I'm like, let me go back to the Salem witch trials. Like, you're a witch. Yes, I am.
Take me. Yes. Yes. Oh,
Just chaos.
yes. Maika, Maritza, thank you so much for being here. This was lovely. I always say it's a real gift to be able to talk to the people who wrote the books that you enjoy and get a little bit into like their head and their thought process and learn about them. I feel like afterwards I always appreciate their novels even more. So thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you for
having
these
us.
thoughtful questions.
I'm glad. Now, where can people find you both and where can they get your books?
Right behind you. I was trying to.
Our sister Lydia does that all the time.
Mm.
But yes, where can people get our books, Marissa? We got to wrap up.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes. You can get our books if you go to maikaandmaritza.com. We have a page with our books, and then you could like pick whatever bookstore or
Mm.
bookshop that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yes.